Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. If you could wind down your conversations and find a nice place to sit, we'll get started in just a minute. Director, and there's stuff going around. So Brian Capistran told me this morning he has a fever, and I said, well, don't come here and share it. So I will step in and kind of do something I haven't done a long time. Back when I was ASA president, it's been a few years, which is to run the general meeting. So anyway, Brian sends his best, and I certainly welcome you. Happy you're here this morning. And there's a few agendas. We didn't want to waste a lot of paper, so if you don't have one, there's some on every table, but hopefully you have them. If not, it's up here on the screen, and you'll kind of see what's happening. But we've got a packed schedule and a lot of good information coming your way. Glad you're here. Happy Friday, and it's been a crazy week, so I know a lot of you are feeling that in different ways, shapes, and forms, and so it's always great. I find it very energizing coming in and having the productive conversations and just overhearing what you guys are talking to each other, because one of the things I think as an association, we're member-based, member-driven, is to support you, to help you be successful, and part of that is just what we do right here and at our conferences, which is to provide opportunities for you to just network and talk to each other, because you are each other's support system. And I'm sorry for those of you online didn't get to enjoy the great breakfast and that camaraderie, but you know what I'm talking about, and we hope to support you in other ways. So anyway, without further ado, I want to thank our sponsors. I think Lilia, you going to come up? And so Lilia Andrews from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and the Center for Model Schools. They're our generous sponsors. They've got lots of swag on the tables, and she even wants to give away some books. So
you better listen. Just kidding. Hi, my name is Lilia. I am with the Center for Model Schools, which is a division of HMH. We're so happy that we were able to sponsor your breakfast today, and I wanted to share. Okay, how do I do this? Right click. All right. I wanted to share something maybe you guys don't know. So a few years back, HMH acquired NWEA. So we are all now one happy family. So if you don't know NWEA, I'm going to tell you that they are the assessment part of our family. And if you know MAP growth assessment or reading fluency, that's them. HMH is our core curriculum company. So they are with, all of the core intervention and supplemental resources. And then Center for Model Schools, we work with leaders, we support leaders in systems and structures, data teams, strategic planning, all of that. And we run alongside HMH and NWEA to support leaders in anything that they're doing with us or with other programs. Here's a few of HMH people in the room. Patty. Stand up. And Lisa. These two gals live in Arizona. So they are going to be your best people to talk about core programs for HMH. Also, Cease is in the room. She is my professional learning director for all of the West, really, and part of Arizona. And then we didn't have a slide for this one, but Scott Schraub in the back, he is the VP of sales for the West for the Center for Model Schools as well. So HMH offerings, again, here's a long laundry list of things that they offer. There's also a flyer on the table with QR codes that you can scan and get more information on that. Center for Model Schools, we offer district leadership support, school leadership support, and teacher leadership support. So anything, we know all the topics, anything that we can support you with in leadership, that's what we do. I also want to point out the best educators conference in this country. It's about, I'm talking about national conference, not just Arizona. This is national. People come from all over to come to this. About 5,000 plus educators come to learn more about what amazing schools are doing, what model schools are doing to improve. And they share what they do, step by step, things that you can implement right away. And I've heard actually just yesterday, oh, everything that I'm doing right now is because of Model Schools Conference. So please, please come. It's in Washington, D.C., June 22nd through the 25th. Okay. So now I'm going to give away 3 books. I have a book from Dr. Adam Drummond, Instructional Change Agent. He is an associate partner and now my current boss, actually. He's amazing. Rigorous Curriculum Design. Who likes standard alignment? Hey. And then we have Ready to Go Instructional Strategies. This one, I just saw Denise White in Las Vegas talking to teachers about what to do in a block schedule. Who has block schedule? Anybody? What are teachers doing in that 80 minutes? What are kids doing, right? So she says 7 to 10 minutes they should be doing something different. The 80 minutes, that's like 8 different activities. Well, anyway, she's amazing. So we got 3 books. I have 3 questions, so whoever can answer. WEA, absolutely. Come on and get a book, please. Oh, both are just amazing. I'm telling you. I brought my best, you guys. Last one. Where and when is the Model Schools Conference? And when? Ooh, good. June 22nd, you guys, in Washington, D.C. this year. You guys have some flyers and a folder that you can get more information about that. You got rigorous curriculum design. Woo, standards alignment. Thank you, guys. Enjoy breakfast.
Thanks, Lily, and thank you for the sponsorship. Great team here this morning, and we have a great partnership with them, so we appreciate that. Next on the agenda, we're very fortunate to have Aaron Wonders here from the governor's office, and even as of last night, Aaron wasn't sure he'd be able to come. It's just been one of those weeks, so we're thankful he's here and appreciate the great support and collaboration with the governor's office.
Good morning, everyone. Like Paul said, Aaron Wonders, Governor's Office. I do K-12 education policy. It's fantastic to be back with you. Just can't extend enough appreciation for the willingness to have us come and present updates. Like Paul said, sometimes it's a little touch and go whether we can make it. Things are a little wild right now. But just can't express enough appreciation for the work that you all do every day. So I wanted to provide just a very brief update from the Governor's Office. One of the things that I'm sure we're all aware of is the start of legislative session. With that comes both the state of state and the rollout of the executive budget. I want to give you a brief overview of the K-12 education components that are in the executive budget. While this is not the final budget for the year, this forms the starting point, the priorities for the governor going into the legislative session. In terms of economy, just to very briefly sketch out, we've seen a pretty healthy economy, robust job growth, low unemployment in the state. However, in terms of general fund revenue, while we are certainly in a much better position than last year, I think last year Ketch and I were up here talking about the deficit and the struggle that was going to cause this last legislative session. This year we're not facing that. However, we do have limited revenue growth. Which does moderate the ability of the state to invest in programs. That being said, improving education has been one of the governor's top priorities. And to that tune this session, there are a number of investments that the executive budget includes that I wanted to walk through. In terms of total amount, compared to last year baseline, the executive budget includes $529 million in general fund investments. That includes the $173 million inflation adjustment at 2%, as well as $285 million for Prop 123. The reason that this is important is, I'm sure as we all know, Prop 123 is coming up for expiration at the end of this fiscal year. Ensuring that this stays in the budget will both continue baseline funding, but also means that when there's a renewal of Prop 123, which the governor has been heavily advocating for, that those funds that are in addition to the 2.5% base rate are new money coming into K-12. So there'll be an increase above baseline, not just continuing on the same path that we're on right now. Additionally, the executive budget includes 2 components that were modified in the budget last year. A few years ago, the legislature enacted a free and reduced price lunch weight that scaled up over 3 years, as well as increases to additional assistance. In the budget last session, those were funded for FY26. However, they were scored as one time, with them coming back as ongoing in FY28. The executive budget proposes to continue those funds, bridging the gap and ensuring that there's no reduction in those two programs. That's $37 million for free and reduced price lunch weight, as well as an additional $29 million for the additional assistance increases, again, ensuring that there's no decrease in those programs. There's some additional smaller investments that the executive budget proposes. Last session, the governor was able to secure a $3.8 million investment in school meal grants. This waives the reduced price copay for students purchasing school meals, so the 30-cent breakfast, 40-cent lunch. That $3.8 million serves about 10 million meals throughout the year, and hope we can continue that investment and ensure kiddos are eating. Additionally, the executive budget includes a $1 million deposit in the Native American Code Writers program. This is a program that's received intermittent funding over the years and provides STEM and AP courses to school-serving tribal students, and additionally contains a $250,000 appropriation to the Teacher Certification Unit at the Department of Education for modernization and upgrades on the teacher certification system. In addition to those investments, the executive budget proposes reform on the ESA program. That reform this year is in the form of a scaled graduated income cap. Just in terms of numbers, our projected ESA enrollment right now for students that did not have prior public school history since universal expansion is about 73% of students. About 56,000 is the executive's estimate for that. And universal ESA costs have now increased past the original pre-universal category. The graduated income cap the executive proposes begins to scale awards down, starting at reported household income at $100,000 and decreasing to a 0% award at $200,000. The executive projects that will impact about $150 million on the general fund. Finally, a couple of other investments. The executive proposes to fund all of the school facilities, the new school construction projects that were approved at the December SFOB meeting. This is for, I believe, 7 school districts, totaling $113 million in starts, as well as the $45 million in year 2 funds for schools that were approved in the prior year. And then finally, the executive proposes to continue building renewal grants at the $200 million amount, which is $183 million one-time funds, similar to how it's been funded the past couple of years. There are a couple of additional investments that I also just wanted to put on your radar that aren't directly K-12, but you may have interest in. One of them is increasing funding to the Arizona Teachers Academy by $15 million. That would bring the total for FY27 to $30 million. Additionally, the executive proposes to invest $6 million one-time in adult education programs. These are programs that were scaled down last session and shifted to one-time funding. Additionally, the executive is proposing a $3 million one-time investment for dual enrollment. And then finally, in a similar vein to the school meal grants, the executive budget proposes a $2.3 million investment in the Sunbucks program. This provides grocery benefits for qualifying families over the summer and contains a pretty significant drawdown from the federal government. So it's a very, very brief highlight of what is contained in the executive budget. As I said, this is the starting point for session. We still have a long way to go, but hope that you can continue to advocate for public schools and that we continue to partner throughout the year. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Well, again, thank you all so much. Can't appreciate you enough for having me here.
Well, thanks, Aaron. That's a lot of information. We do support and appreciate the governor's prioritization of K-12 public education. So thank you and the team for that, and thanks for being here this morning. So next on our agenda, we have Margaret Dugan from the Department of Ed, and also Adam Schwartz after her. So come on up, Margaret. Thanks for being here this morning.
Good morning, everybody. As I told Paul, Tom would like to have been here this morning. I'm sure you are aware of all the news happening and changing on a daily basis. So hopefully he will be here at your March ASA meeting. Today, Adam and I are going to tag team this. I'm just going to give a couple of initiatives that we have been working on at the Department of Ed that we are getting ready to roll out very quickly. Some of you might have already heard on the essential standards. Superintendent Horn and the Department of Ed has worked with some stakeholders. Some of you are teachers in either math or language arts from third grade to eighth grade are reviewing the AASA to identify essential standards, those standards that we feel are more important, the most important for our students to know at each grade level as they progress through 3 through 8. And we had a really robust group of language arts and math teachers come to that meeting to identify the essential standards. Next week, they will list the essential standards and they will be posted online. Superintendent Horn and the department's hoping that this will help our teachers identify those essential standards and know that they will be the ones tested on the state test for those grade levels. We feel it's important, and I think most of you do too, in order to motivate students as well as teachers, they have to know what they know and what they don't know. And I think by identifying the essential standards, teachers can focus their instruction. Therefore, when they review their test results at the end of the year, they will know what they need to improve on and what are those things that they need to really team with other teachers to make sure our students are being successful on the state test. We did not see any bump in improvement this last year. And so we really need to make sure that the teachers are rewarded for their hard work each day and that students know that they're progressing as well. So that's one of the big reasons we moved to the essential standards. It's about 50% of the standards will be identified, and then we'll get to work on making sure those standards are going to be actionable, whether or not we have to beef them up in some way in order to show a mastery of those standards. The other thing is some of you are already signed up for what we call Conmigo from the Khan Academy. It's a tutoring somewhat program for our students. We had a tutoring program that ran out of money faster than we thought we were going to run out of. And we had a lot of parents call and say this really helped their student, their child, improve their reading and mathematics. We compiled some data and found out that 22% of the students who availed themselves to this tutoring increased half a year progress in either reading or mathematics. So that's pretty phenomenal. As we ran out of money, we had also gone into a partnership with Khan Academy. They're offering Conmigo for the first $1 million to so many students in Arizona. I think there's at least 35 districts that have signed on. So what we're going to do is look at those districts, try to find out how the kids are doing using this Conmigo. Hopefully, we're going to see some great results for those students who need interventions. They can go on to Conmigo. How many of you have gone on to any of the Khan Academy? Okay, you'll find out they run kind of a Socratic method. They don't give the student the answer. The students, they're asked a series of questions, and I think it's a good process for us to use. We would love to have every student have a tutor after school so they can get direct help, but Conmigo's probably the next best thing. Adam is going to come up and go over some good information I think all of you will really enjoy. School improvement, as most of us know, we're all into it. That's kind of why we're in this profession of education, is to improve student achievement. So
thank you, Paul, for making the time for me today. A side plug for that Conmigo, my 8th grader comes home with math problems that I can't help him with anymore. And it's a great, you put him on that and it doesn't just give him the answer, it walks him through the steps. And so instead of me saying, hey, go in and ask your teacher tomorrow. He's got somebody there, well, something there that help them through those steps. So real quick, wanted to go over some of the enhancements with our CNA graphs. We got some feedback from all of you and people in the field last year on our new CNA process, which we've really pared down and streamlined and tried to make user friendly. All of this I'm going to show you today is currently forward-facing and public can access it. If you are like me with ADHD and want to do this on your phone or your laptop while I'm going through it, Google CNA ADE graphs. It'll be the first thing that pops up for you, and you could put in your own schools and see it instead of the examples So first of all, this launch page, it gives some of the reasons why you may not see data. Low in counts, for example. We can't report any data that's over 98% or less than 2% for FERPA's sake. And so this first page goes over for not only schools, but for the community, why there may not be data for a school. A lot of times we run into it on special education achievement because we don't have 10 students who've met proficiency, and so we can't report any of them. So at least public facing. Next slide, please. So this is one of the new innovations that we have. So when you put in your school, so for example, here I put in Willow Canyon High School. Over there, it's on the high school graph on the right. Not only will it show you your district average, the large blue dot, but it'll also show you all of your district schools. All the sister schools are the smaller blue dots. This year, you can also hover and click on any of the dots on the graph, so you can see, okay, we're 48% free and reduced lunch. Let me look at other schools in that area, and you can look and click on other schools and see what they're doing, hopefully looking at the schools above you, because as we all know, not only are the best teachers good thieves, so too are the best administrators. And so those are the people you want to talk to. They're in the same boat. The Willow Canyon, very low Native Americans population, so we don't show any results for them. But as a district as a whole, there are enough to reach end count so that you have that data if you don't have the data on your school level. Go ahead. Another example of that, this is special education. Not low end count on the left, but we have the district data on the right so that you have some data to work with public facing. And this is the last one. We've stratified it by type of school because we understand that things like arts enrollment, PE enrollment, things like that, we don't see the same high levels of enrollment. In elementary school, almost every kid does PE and art, right? At high school, not true. And when we compare high schools to elementary schools, the high schools are all very low performing compared to all the schools in the state when we look at PE and arts enrollment. So we've stratified those out by type of school so that you have a little bit more data to look at. Next step for us, we're trying to get longitudinal data in there so that you can click and see last year's results and prior year results.
Good morning. Thanks, Paul. No worries. It's always great to be back here at Deer Valley with you, amongst friends. Sean got a personal obligation this morning, so he couldn't be with you. So you got the B team here. Just a reminder, as this is the board's strategic plan, strategic priority areas, as well as our areas of focus. I see pictures, but I'll hang there for a second. And then this, I'm going to give you kind of an update from January board meeting, what's coming up. A little bit about the receivership process, and then what's happening in future board meetings. So in the January board meeting, as always in the beginning of the year, we elect new board leadership. Catherine Haley moved from vice president to president, and Dr. Scott Hagerman moved into the vice president role. We had a presentation from the ASU Next Gen Workforce and Ed Prep program. Interesting presentation that you might look at, alternate staffing model type thing. And then they considered the A through F. An A through F overview, the board also adopted the recommendations from the A through F Appeals Committee. So if that impacted you, they did adopt those recommendations. And then got a presentation on A through F in general, but also the indicator scoring coming. And then, we've talked before about our target was this fall. And that is no longer the case. Our target for indicator scoring is not this fall. The ATACs needed more time to kind of work through some of the issues they were seeing in the whole kind of ecosystem, especially when you start busting out those little pieces for indicator scoring. We also had a presentation in January from the Department of Education on ELL, a lot of data around that. They also did make a recommendation, although this was an information item and not a voting item, but they did make a recommendation on the models. And so that might be worth a look for your EL folks. And we expect them to probably bring back that recommendation as a voting item in the future. They also gave us an ESA overview of the program and also talked a little bit about the handbook and the work they've been doing, and that'll come to the board in the future in March. And then annually, we're going to start an educator recruitment retention kind of report, and that'll be housed on the State Board of Education website, but that is in partnership with the State Board staff and the ADE staff. ADE has developed a lot of dashboards about the pipeline, about turnover rates on your TIA data, and you can break out by certificate type and all kinds of information, age, ethnicity, years of experience in the field. And so we're going to combine that into a report type format on the State Board of Education website. They also are doing 2 surveys now, the leaver survey. So as folks leave, I know a lot of you do exit interviews, but we're like a third, AD is like a third party getting more information about why they may have left, and also the shortage survey. You may be aware and seen the news about the receivership of Isaac. Just to kind of touch base that the State Board does have kind of purview over that, can put LEAs into some oversight modes as well as ultimately receivership. We did have a special meeting in January and did put Isaac into receivership. We were notified on December 31st. This kind of, by the county superintendent, this kind of talks through the steps. It's really small up there right now, but maybe you'll get a copy and you'll see those steps. I would just say that that was kind of unprecedented action. Usually it's a much longer process, 2 to 4 months for the State Board to do that, and it was done in about a week. But it was due to the urgency of the situation and trying to keep the teachers' payroll going and that type of thing. So it's still ongoing, as you can see in the news. And a preview of upcoming meetings. There's some interesting things happening in Cochise County in terms of school safety with their sheriff. And so that was originally slated for February. That'll be probably coming in March. ADE is going to bring forward some work that they're doing with some partners, I think the Dana, Texas as well, around Algebra 2 being kind of we all know that's kind of a gatekeeper course. And a lot of states, there's several states that have been doing some work around Algebra 2 in different pathways, same rigor, but different types of coursework, and then working with institutes or working with higher ed and kind of adjusting what Algebra 2, some concepts that higher ed is saying that probably don't need to be there anymore. So there's a lot of dominoes to do this work, but the first domino is to probably look at the standards of Algebra 2. And so ADE will be bringing that forward, and rest assured we're not opening all of the math standards, that it will be just the Algebra 2. Perkins 5 will come back probably in February as an update for board approval later, probably in March or April. And then we'll have the ESA handbook in March. That's always an exciting meeting. And then we will also have a discipline report. We do an annual discipline report. That is available. Past reports are available on our website. Tons of data about discipline and demographics of folks and different levels of immoral and ethical violations and how that plays out. But we'll update that for the year in hearing none. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. We appreciate that and keeping us updated and the work you guys are doing. So, again, apologize for the mix-up in the agenda order. I'll try not to screw it up from here forward. So next, we have an AIA update from Dave Verdugo. So come on up, Dave. He's got some exciting news to share. Uh-oh. I can't get it to go back.
Thank you. Good morning. I've been the AIA liaison on the executive board for almost a year and taking over for Jerry Jennings. And the very first thing that we were tasked with was actually hiring a new executive director. And so I am here today to introduce, yesterday the board unanimously decided to offer the position to Dr. Jim Dean. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Jim Dean and actually have him come up. Yeah, I'm not going to let him get away from having a few words, but I'll let Dr. Jim Dean give the update. For those didn't see the press release yesterday, it shared why he was the unanimous choice for this position. After many years in education as a superintendent and as the associate director, he's done a lot of great things, and we expect him to continue those great things. So, Dr. Jim Dean.
Thank you very much. Thanks, David. And I have to tell you that being back at the table is like an old ASA reunion with Andy and Jason. We used to get ourselves in trouble quite some years ago, and I think we were on our way back there before I stood up and came up here as well. So it's great to see all of you again, and very excited about the opportunity that David and the executive board have provided to serve as the executive director of the AIA. And as we move forward, we want to be about two things with the AIA. The first thing is we want to be about serving our member schools. Our member schools are our primary stakeholder with the AIA, and we want to make sure that we are reaching out and meeting your needs. And the second thing we want to be about is elevating opportunities for our student athletes, our coaches, administrators, schools, and communities. And so we are here as a support organization to help you do great things in your athletic and activity endeavors. And the one thing that we want you to be aware of is that if you need anything at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. It is important for us to always be listening, to always be looking to meet your needs. And we've started to open that process in the last year and a half with your athletic directors, and moving into this realm, having been a former superintendent and knowing many of you from working together over the course of the last several years and decades. We look forward to expanding those opportunities and continue to hear from you as well. So, Mr. Verdugo, thank you for the opportunity. It's my pleasure, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Have a great day. Thanks, David.
Congratulations, Jim. We look forward to many years of partnership with you as well. So we're happy for you, and pleased for AIA as well. Good choice. All right, so next we have a great partner in education. Some of our friends are here from Education Forward Arizona, and I'd like to first of all apologize the misspelling of your last name, Rich, on the agenda, but it's correct up here. Rich Nickel, come on up, and certainly Teresa as well. Come on up.
I'm glad I got here a little early.
Yeah, we just never know. So good. Just right button.
Okay.
So I see a couple of familiar faces, and I know I've got like 10 minutes up here, so I want to make sure we share some things, but I do want to introduce ourselves first. I'm Rich Nickel. I'm president and CEO of Education Forward Arizona. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit education advocacy organization here in the state. We are statewide. And I also have Dr. Terry Leyva Ruiz with me today. She's in charge of our advocacy and programs, senior vice president of the organization. And she's the one who really was instrumental in making sure that we had a little time today to talk to you guys about what we do. So let's get started. All right, so as I mentioned, we are a statewide nonprofit. Our name may seem a little new to you, but the organization actually is comprised of 3 nonprofits we brought together now 4 years ago. That was College Success Arizona, Expect More Arizona, which was a well-known advocacy organization, and then also Achieve 60 AZ, which was a small organization started to promote our state's attainment goal, which we are still in pursuit of. Some of you may know us by brands that we have that are program brands also. We, along with our advocacy and voice, we also have a nice stable of direct programs that impact students and high schools across the state, and those students as they move into post-secondary and college. Ask Benji may be known to some of you all. It's the state's FAFSA chatbot. It's available 24/7 to anyone in the state. You go to the website and you can get there. Last year we reached about 40,000 seniors and their parents to help them complete their FAFSA. There's also some good news on FAFSA this year that'll probably be coming out soon as far as how Arizona is actually doing the best in years. Also, we have a very strong scholarship program. One I will point out to you guys right now is a new partnership we have with Freeport Mac. Cost of attendance for them to get one of 6 important certifications and then guarantee them a position as long as they remain qualified with Freeport. So something else really interesting if you guys are looking for that. Last thing I'll mention for you all, because this is, I think, a great opportunity, especially for your anybody on your staff, any leadership that talks to students about what they want to do after high school, the education and training they may want to pursue, is our Arizona College Access Network. One of the offerings we have here, and this is free to join the membership and the network, is called College Access Professional Training. It's probably become the most well-known access professional training in the state. Can also be used to renew your certifications if you're a counselor or professional who has one of those types of certifications. One of the assets that we also help with is the Arizona Education Progress Meter. Hopefully some of you all have used this. If not, I would encourage you to go to our website and take a look. Since Arizona doesn't really have a complete plan for education, about 7 years ago, community members from across the state came together to think about, where we want our state to be along the continuum. What I'll point to is the last one there, the attainment rate. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And this is something that we're keeping a very close eye on. There'll be some new data here soon. The attainment rate, for those who may not know much about it, or the goal, is really for us to think about how we can get to 60% of our working age adults, 25 to 64, who hold some type of post-secondary credential or degree. So we don't care where they got it from. All we want is more people in our state in that working age cohort that have some type of industry recognized certificate, associates, bachelors, whatever it is. And we've got, 5 years basically to get to our goal. Today we're at 48%. We've grown from 42%, and I think in the next piece of data you may see a little uptick in this rate. Each percentage point, this doesn't seem like big growth, but each percentage point means that we've created somewhere just south of 40,000 net new degrees for our state. So each percentage point is hugely important for our state and the economy of our state. We also do a lot of reporting. What we want to do is be an information provider to people who are doing strategic planning, those who are making decisions, policymakers, the public also. A couple of years ago, because we were really hearing a lot of this narrative out in the world about, is college still worth it? Is post-secondary still worth it? What good is it doing for our state and our country? And so we did a pretty major report called Billions to Gain with the Helios Education Foundation. And what we found was startling, actually, about the continued value of education and training after high school. Roughly, we found that all three of these categories benefit, and they benefit literally to the tune of billions of dollars if we can reach certain milestones. So individuals, certainly. Social, you would be amazed how much communities save in social spending and investments when they have high attainment rates. And also, of course, the direct fiscal impact to our state through increased tax revenue and that sort of thing. To make sure that people were getting the message about this, we knew we couldn't just have this report and let it go. And we also wanted to continue to fight this narrative that you don't need any type of post-secondary education or training to be successful in this evolving, political and or economic ecosystem that we have. So we started this Everything to Gain campaign. We've been working on this for 2 years now. And basically what it says is our state has everything to gain if we get more students into some type of education and training after high school. Come on. One thing we know is to reach our goal, we're going to need 500,000 more additional degrees and certificates. And we basically have 5 or 6 years to go, depending on when you put the slide up to get there. So it's daunting, but we think it can be done, and every percentage point counts, right? We also found a couple of other things, and this is some stats that you may want to reference if you're having conversations. One, if we increase higher education enrollment, that means anywhere they go, so community colleges, trade schools, universities, by 20%, that means $5 billion to our state. For each cohort that would happen in. Also, there's great power in parity. And what we also found here is that 8.7 billion in economic gains would be seen in our state if everybody performed at the same rate as the highest performing rate. So if all of our underserved communities gained access, completed, got in the pipeline at the same rate today as their white peers are, it's worth 8.7 billion. So this year we said, okay, we have all this great data, but we also need to know what Arizonans are thinking. So we did a series of 3 polls. The first one was called the Perceptions Poll. We wanted to figure out what people thought about education, what their beliefs were, what they might support. The next one we called the Barriers Poll. We went to people who either had started post-secondary and not completed, or who never started. These were young adults, to see why they did not do that. And then the third one was called the Solutions Poll. This is more of a policy poll, where we went back to people and said, okay, out of these types of ideas, what are you in favor of? What is the public, and these are all voters in this case, what are you in favor of our legislators and our policymakers supporting? A couple of things are important. 86% of voters polled say they support the Achieve 60 AZ goal, so an attainment goal for our state. They get it, right? And 71% believe that more should be done to increase the number of Arizonans who have access to education and training after high school. Our polling people and our political advisors tell us this actually is a public mandate. If we were ever to put some type of bill out as a referral, that we could put together a coalition that could pass some type of education reform in this state and really, take us maybe to the next level. We're certainly not at that place yet, but it's something to think about. Kind of winding down here. Here's also some key takeaways from the solutions poll. So in the middle, we I don't want to leave this out. We did talk to these young adults about what was keeping them from going. So we all, hear a lot of things because we're all interested in education. So we hear that people don't want to go because they may not think they fit in. They may want to go because they didn't think they were getting enough good advice from their counselors or their teachers or their community. They may not want to go because of political biases and how they think versus how the school might think. None of that polled. That all ended up being political sign material, culture war type of stuff. What polled was cost. So cost, from a perception, is still the reason that people aren't going, and costs that are adjacent to that cost. Childcare, number one. Okay? So the good news is those are things we can actually build policy and invest in to solve. The bad thing is, even as hard as we try and as good a job as our universities and community colleges do in trying to help students who may be from low-income communities, who may not, have parents who went to school, we still have a long way to go. So, but it's good to know. Here's what we found in the last poll, and then I'll wind down here. And this is great because this really tells us where we should head this year and in the future. 95% of voters. You cannot get 95% of voters or even 80% of voters to agree the sky is blue in Arizona. Literally, right? I mean, we're in a divisive environment here. 95% of voters say they want to expand access to career training and readiness programs. No newsflash for you guys. Career-connected messaging is the only way to talk about post-secondary right now, okay? Education for education's sake, non-starter, okay? If we want to talk about it and it be compelling and people listen to us, we really have to talk about education and training after high school, not college as kind of the term. 93% support broadening access to dual enrollment and other types of advanced placement courses. And unfortunately, last year in our budget, those were mostly cut, or at least access to give more people access to those type courses. 81% want to waive fees for programs that help students earn credits while they're in high school. This is wildly important to future success for lots of reasons. And then last, I think this is important, and this is why, especially if you're talking to your legislators, you can tell them this is a winning issue no matter what side you're on, right? And that is 3 in 4 Arizonans said they want to vote for candidates that prioritize educational goals, right? And these types of educational goals. So I think what you'll see us doing from our voice side, not as much of our program side and our advocacy side, is really thinking about reigniting this case for why attainment is so important in our state, what it means to our future. And it's not hyperbole to say that if we cannot continue to increase our attainment rates in our state, we will fall behind. Today, we only have 47% of our public school, high school graduates going on to any type of education and training after high school. Our business community, economic development people, CEOs, they tell us that's not sustainable. We cannot continue to move people here because we don't have the same value statement that we used to about low cost of living, right? Low taxes. The low cost of living is gone. And low taxes have about run its course for bringing new business here. So here's some things to think about. Recent budget cuts certainly, the perception has moved us backwards a little bit when it comes to education policy. Dual enrollment AP programs cut last year. Arizona Promise program, really the only effort our state's made to do direct funding for low-income students to incentivize them to enter our universities, was cut last year. Adult education programs in our state's community colleges cut last year. All those have been restored in the executive proposal this year, the governor's budget proposal, but really just to move us back to where we were before. So it's certainly not enough to move us forward, and that's the message that we'll have. The community certainly expects leaders to move the education forward, and when it's when you talk about who that actually is, they mean the state. So legislators, executive branch, policymakers. And then there is overwhelming support to help Arizonans pursue education and training after high school. So this is the message. People believe in attainment. They know they're better off. Doesn't mean they can always make it there. But people are not pursuing this because they don't think it's good. So let's just try not to buy into all these things we're seeing when we're having elections that are base building type of messages. People do get it and they want to go. We have to help them. Majority of voters support people who champion this, and policymakers who prioritize it can gain significantly in their own constituencies. All right, if you're interested, we certainly provide information to this. It's not spammy, I can promise you that. If we give you something, it's includes these types of points or information about what's going on in the state. It's our Everything to Gain campaign. And Paul, I want to thank you again for having us. If you want me to take a question, I will. If we need to move on, I understand that too. Awesome. Thank you all very much. One thing I will say, if anybody, I know you all are from around the state, if you have an opportunity or you think it would be good for have somebody like me or Terry come and talk about this kind of broad topic or any topic that you may be interested in about the value of post-secondary education or some advocacy points or programs we have, we would love to come and visit your school systems too. Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Rich, Terry. We appreciate all the work you're doing, and the importance of those progress meter indicators, as well as everything to gain, and the work you're doing is critical.
I appreciate that. Today actually is my last day. I'm a long-time educator, serving our communities. Most recently as the president of NFB. So I look forward to this chapter and for you supporting our community. I'd love to come back and chat with you next time.
We'll invite you back, so please do. So I know those of you on hear what Terry said, but she is excited about her next challenge, and we are excited to have her as a candidate for 2026. And it's nice having a well-accomplished educational leader running for such an important office. So that's much appreciated as well. Next on the agenda, our higher ed team and our higher ed division has been doing some work and getting research into practice. And so Rose Riomaki, come on up. gonna switch it. You're okay. 10 minutes.
He's gonna run it into, I can use this, I think. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. I am representing, it's so hard for me to do that. I still have the playground voice from being a principal in Wisconsin a number of years ago, but maybe not quite that loud, so okay. So I represent the ASA Higher Education Division, which includes U of A, Northern Arizona University, where I'm the Dell and Joe Lewis Endowed Chair in Education Leadership. My colleague Lynette Brunderman has been at U of A as well, and she's now at NAU working on school development and research with us as a team. And then we have ASU and Grand Canyon University, so a number of universities and a number of projects. We have been talking across the group, not just at NAU, but all of the group members, about the importance of research and practice connections. And it's the Model Schools Project at an international level. That's one way to think about it. It's looking at schools and principals leadership in schools in particular, of schools that are considered model, or we say the word successful. This is the International Successful School Principalship Project. I got that out early without enough coffee. And what we're looking at here is an example that comes from this project, which has 27 countries, and it has, we're up to about 400 cases of successful or model schools right now that are mixed methods that we take a look at. But beyond that, how they think about and how they do in this very complex environment in which we find ourselves, with multiple rapid changes, AI coming in so fast, the COVID-19 and its lingering effects, all these kinds of things that just happen, right? Meanwhile, we have principals who are building schools for communities for all children in ways that have some commonalities and that are interesting and important to look at. So what we are trying to do is use an example from this project, and we'll adapt it for Arizona, we'll make it ours. But we're trying to look at how we can bring research and practice together. Every 2 years, this project invites principals, practitioners, superintendents, and others who are leading to join researchers, and the researchers present what we're learning from ISSPP and other related projects that are important, and then we have practitioners present. Not just how they're implementing, but how they're thinking about this and what they've been doing, and panels of students that are the beneficiaries in a certain way and our future leaders in schools come together, and they kind of go in dialogue. The last one was in London, and it had really an interesting, nice format that we're thinking we can adapt for our needs. And at that conference, we talked about some commonalities, not just in the US, but some common critical issues that principals really have to navigate, educate, mediate around the world, including Arizona. We have cases right here in the state that we've taken a look at. So it's come from that project and others, but also these critical issues came from ASA. Now, mind you, this was almost a year ago, which is a long time in the way things move right now. We generated some of these. We generated these at ASA Higher Ed Division. They came up in London in certain ways. My colleague Robin Conrad Hansen from NAU and I and Lynette Brunderman presented at the National NAESP and NASSP United Conference this summer. They came up there. So we're just kind of want to see, because that was, like I said, June and July last year. That was a long time ago. So we just kind of see where we're at. But if you take a glance at these, we heard them a bit again today. The teacher principal shortage and retention. And again, remember, this is what principals are doing to navigate and support that. And we have research from these cases. Okay, thank you. Lynette's timing on me. We have research that shows directly, both statistically and qualitatively, that the principal is the number one link now to improving the teacher retention rate. And the shortage. Diversity and commonality. Our students are linguistically and culturally more diverse. And yet, we have changing standards. We just heard about them today. So how do we mediate that? Quality teaching while we're moving into AI and we're talking about Khan and these kinds of things. How successful leadership works at multiple levels, the principal in relation to districts and beyond, and then, of course, school safety. At APEL, we're going to try this with the research practitioner, and this is May 2nd, and you'll get a flyer on that. We're going to try it in a larger way at a little mini conference between the summer ASA and a school development project that Lynette and I lead. And it's going to be on the teacher retention topic. Going forward, we want to do this 2 or 3 times a year, including virtual webinar sorts of things that help people to come together and network and share and look at solutions for these things. But again, this is all coming from like a year ago, a long time ago. Yes, and we will have handouts that Carl and I have been working on that we'll share on research. But we want to check these and get a sense of where you are in terms of the issues or topics that are important to you. And Lynette's going to help me because she knows I can't do this fast enough.
They have to switch to my screen, or the QR code won't come up. So if you could join Slido either at slido.com or by scanning the QR code, and then rank those critical issues in order of their relevancy to you, please. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Yeah, it is. And just so you know, if you're putting other on the next slide, we'll ask you to tell what those are. See a couple people still putting things in. We'll give it about 30 more seconds. Looks like we're done. So they kind of are ranked in the order that they're listed, which doesn't really surprise me. But now, if you have other issues that you believe should be addressed, because that was just a start, if you could plop those in, that would be great.
Again, as we're doing this, we want to meet your needs, right? And to be able to have this dialogue so we're not separate. Yeah, I know. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, these are good. Thank you for these. These are really good. These are helpful. I know. These are very good. As you can hear me over there, don't you? These are very helpful.
All I have. He can switch back to the other one.
Yeah. Thank you very much. These are excellent, very much appreciated. We will, to be continued, we will share updates and try to continue to meet your needs as higher ed research too. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, and thank you to the higher ed team. One of the things when I share out with my colleagues from other state associations across the U.S., they don't have the higher ed connection that we have, which they're rather envious of. So I commend you for your work, and also just, appreciative of the structure we have here at ASA to be able to look beyond K-12, but really, PK-20. And, it's an important connection, and I've got colleagues who are very jealous. So we really, have been looking at some of the things we do in our conferences too, about that connecting, theory and practice. And so we're going to continue working on that. So it's been fun. So next, not that there's anything really to talk about with legislation and legislative stuff, right? So Mark and Rebecca, come on up. Our fearless team.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here today with everyone. Rebecca Beebe, Director of Governmental Affairs for ASA. So this Friday ends the third week of session, so we're still beginning parts of the legislative session. It's quite busy. I was going to make slides for this meeting, but things are moving so fast, but we're also in the beginning of session. So some of the bills that you'll hear me talk about now, hopefully won't make it the distance or will change. So just bear that in mind as I go over a few highlights to share with you today. So there's 3 weeks left for bills to be heard in their committee of origin. That means House bills have to be heard in a House committee, and Senate bills have to be heard in a Senate committee sometime in the next 3 weeks. And then they flip chambers, and there's another 6 weeks of hearings. So once there's that deadline of House of Origin hearings, we have a much better understanding of what bills are actually moving forward. So there's been almost 1,200 bills introduced, at least 100 or so related to K-12. So I've spent a lot of time the last 3 weeks reading and summarizing bills. I think I owe a couple people in here an email from this week, so thank you for your patience with me in one of the busiest parts of session. So some of the bills I wanted to highlight today are in different themes. So the first theme I'll talk about is mandates. If you were at the ASBO, last ASBO meeting, when they asked what I thought we'd see next session, I said I had to mention that we were going to see a lot of mandates. They run the gamut from CPR training to requiring you to teach about fetal development. Yes, fetal development, a baby. That will be in Education Committee next week. So some of the mandates I wanted to highlight today that we're working on and taking position on. House Bill 2019 would have required that school districts provide information about swimming courses and swimming lessons in the neighborhood to all parents upon enrollment. We are lucky that we have Representative Lisa Fink, a new legislator on the Education Committee who runs a charter school, I think in the North Scottsdale area. She is opposed to all of these mandates, so she's actually been very helpful in seeking amendments on some. So on the school water safety bill, she ran an amendment that requires ADE to identify that information about swimming safety and swimming. And then it just requires school districts and charters provide a link to that information upon enrollment in the school. House Bill 2172 is another mandate that's made it through committee. It required school districts provide information on preventing sex trafficking and child sex crimes. Again, Representative Fink luckily ran an amendment to that we support that does kind of the same thing as the school water safety amendment, which is that it requires ADE to develop and house this information, and then just requires schools to provide a link to that information. So I just highlight those. There's a fetal development mandate in committee next week. There are a couple bills that have been run directing the State Board of Education to open the standards and add really specific stuff to the standards. Members used to just run bills that said schools have to teach about communism now, and we used to try and direct them to the standards, and that would really frustrate them and typically would stop the bills. Now they're running a little bit of more sophisticated bills where they are directing the State Board of Education to open the standards and put really specific items in the standards. So we've been working with our partners at the State Board and the Department of Ed to educate what the standards are and why we don't need to be directing SBE to open them and add whatever idea an elected official comes up with. 2196 is a bill related to CPR and AEDs, the automatic external defibrillators. It's being run by the Heart Association, and it would mandate that schools have an AED anywhere a sporting activity takes place, and would mandate that all coaches are trained in first aid, CPR, and AEDs. Luckily, again, Representative Lisa Fink on the Education Committee is helping us try to amend this mandate. This is a more difficult type of mandate to amend, especially when we're talking about coaches working with kids that are doing a lot of cardio work or whatever. So we've been directing them to the AIA policy. We appreciate the help of the AIA. And that bill is on committee next week. It's an unfunded mandate as well, so we are trying to seek some type of amendment that would only require these mandates about the AEDs and the CPR training if there were to be sufficient funding appropriated to that program every year. So there's a few more bills in that type of area, mandates and standard stuff that we'll be monitoring and seeking the type of amendments I've told you. I wanted to highlight the Department of Ed's legislative priorities. Senate Bill 1028 would mandate a minimum passing score on the high school statewide assessment. As you guys know, that's the ACT test. I met with department staff. I met with the sponsoring the bill, Senator Kavanaugh, and told them about our opposition to a minimum passing score and how that's been law in the past and actually was repealed. We all agreed to disagree. So that's still a priority of the Department of Ed to try and get that piece of legislation passed. They also have another priority bill, 2663, related to classroom removal procedures. You may have heard the Superintendent Horn speak about the lack of support from administration to teachers during discipline episodes. So this bill we just saw, and it's on a committee next week, it would require the principal or administrator to provide a teacher that has a kid outside of the classroom or asks the kid to be outside of the classroom. Before readmitting the pupil to the classroom, the principal would have to provide a written notice to the teacher of all the disciplinary action that was taken and next steps with that pupil. We obviously have an issue with that. In some states, the teachers' unions are actually the ones that run this bill. When I talk to my counterparts in other states, opposing the teachers' union on these types of teacher pupil removal and classroom readmittance. So we obviously have some issues with this bill. So we'll be meeting again with the department staff and the sponsor on that before it goes through committee next week. A couple other bills quickly I wanted to highlight. 2375, you'll probably see more information on this bill from me, especially if you're on the legislative committee. This is being run by Jenny Clark, a member of the State Board of Education, who runs a nonprofit called Love Your School that helps people connect to their school of choice. So she is a voucher proponent, and she's running a bill related to the initial communication. And sorry, I'm not super fluent in this language, but if a parent requests an evaluation, district staff has 15 days to meet and notify the parent that they are or are not doing that evaluation. That kicks on the 60-day clock to complete the evaluation. She is trying to apply these timelines over the summer months, which would be problematic. I testified against this bill in committee. We hear constantly or consistently, from superintendents that we're already struggling to meet the status quo. So if you see this bill or it comes up with the legislator, I would just, continue to harp on that message that districts are struggling right now with the law the way it is to be able to complete all the evaluations, both for the kids in the district and any private placement. And I can take a question. That's Susie's group. I'm sorry, could you repeat those groups? Is that the special ed administrators? Yes, with Susie Kanata yes. Yeah, Susie's been helping me lobby against this bill. So the AZ case, which stands for the Arizona Council for Administrators of Special Education. Yes, they have a lobbyist, Susie Kanata, so she's been helpful in this. Thank you. So we'll be working against that one. The Democratic Caucus understands the issue. Stephanie Simicek on this board is actually on the Education Committee, and Deer Valley has been public about their struggles to maintain status quo, so it's very helpful to have her on the committee. Then there's the school safety bill related to emergency operations plans that Representative Gress is running. We are trying to get the sponsor to get DEMA and the Auditor General all in one room so that we can discuss how to actually make the audits of the emergency operations plans meaningful. If you remember, a lot of districts were dinged on their emergency operation plan audit from the Auditor General. We got quite a bit of feedback from you guys on the confusion between the Auditor General requirements and the confusion with the involvement of DEMA. So just know that we're working on that. And then, of course, you heard the State Board of Ed mention the situation with the Isaac School District. Even before that went into receivership, we told you guys that we expected to hear a lot of conversation on administrative bloat, administrative pay, administrative mismanagement, and that has certainly heightened those conversations. So there's been several bills related to the USFR, related to receivership, that Mark and I are working with our partners and with Heinfeld Meach, with some experts there, on how to amend those to make them workable. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to talk a little bit about what it's like to lobby the legislature right now. We both testified in committee this week against bills. We had two very different experiences because of the two different committees, so he's offered to talk a little bit more about that and a couple other policy issues. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Rebecca. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Barnes on your legislative team, and I'll go fairly quickly on this. Just Rebecca and I both had the experience to testify against bills last week. She testified against the evaluation bill she just referenced, and was basically interrogated because of the membership of that particular committee. I, on the other hand, testified against a bad bond bill, a bill that would have made it harder to pass bonds and overrides, and I was politely listened to for a short period of time and received a couple of questions, and then asked to sit down, and then they voted the bill out on party lines like they typically do. So we're going to be killing a lot of and amending a lot of bills this year. It's likely not going to happen in committee. I won't say what I said to the legislative committee because it didn't go over well, but we're not going to be killing bills in front of their sponsor, but they are going to be disposed of in one way or another. We may get stuck with a couple bad ones, and we'll try to triage. We'll try to manage that. I want to cover Prop 123 just in 30 seconds because you're going to hear a lot of it, and it's very confusing. Prop 123, the old one expires the end of fiscal year 2025. The state general fund is going to backfill what would have come out of the state trust land. So we will get the funding. It just will not come from state trust land. It'll come from the general fund. That means there's an opportunity for a new Prop 123, which will provide additional funding out of the state trust land That's what we're working on. What we've been consistently saying is that we want some discretion in the use of funds, not for it all to go to teachers, which is sort of a legislative desire, and that there be money in there to cover employee-related expenses when you give raises and some other things. So that's what we're working on. There was a press conference that we were involved in that was canceled because of the Isaac thing. We just thought it would be better to cancel it, so you may see a press release on that. So I just wanted to cover that very briefly. And then thank whoever put on Lynette's system up there, addressing false narratives related to public education. Whichever you volunteered that comment, that is so apropos to the situation. You know, it applies to the Roosevelt situation because they're dying to say, oh, well, there's more districts right out there about ready to go into receivership, and then all the other stuff. So whoever put that on, right on. Thank you.
We're happy to answer any questions if there's any questions. All right, thank you guys. Thanks.
Thank you both. I know it's not always fun, and I purposefully don't attend committee meetings because I display too much body language, and that's not a good thing. So moving right along, it is now time to transition to our division meeting. So we have a few minutes while the transitions occur. Walls will close, and here are the locations for the rooms. I want to thank everyone and those of you online as well for tuning in, and thank you for being here, and thanks for all you do for kids. That's why we're here, and sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. So thank you all.